I'm not proud of this story. In fact, I wish I could erase the memory entirely. But sometimes, the most dangerous people you'll ever meet aren't hiding in dark alleys or stalking you on the street. They're waiting behind a smiling profile picture on a dating app you download when you're lonely. I was 29, living in Ohio at the time, and fresh out of a breakup that had left me wrecked. My friends told me to get back out there, so after a few weeks, I downloaded Tinder. At first it was a joke, endless swiping, bad pickup lines, and people I knew I'd never meet in real life. But then I matched with her. Her name was Melissa. She had dark hair, green eyes, and a soft kind of smile that instantly disarmed me. Her profile said she liked photography, old diners, and adventures at midnight. Corny? Yeah, but there was something magnetic about her. She messaged me first. That alone made me lower my guard. Our conversations flowed quickly, and within a week, she suggested meeting in person. But here's where things got strange. Instead of a coffee shop, bar, or restaurant, she invited me to meet her at an old roadside motel about 40 minutes outside the city. Less crowded, she said, more private. I laughed it off at first, thinking she was joking, but she insisted. She even sent me a location pin just off the highway, surrounded by woods. I hesitated. Every red flag in the world was waving in my head, but something about the timing, my loneliness, her charm, the way she seemed so genuinely interested, it pulled me in. Against better judgment, I told her yes. That Friday night, around 10 p.m., I found myself driving down a 2-lane road, headlights cutting through the trees, phone buzzing with her texts. She kept sending me things like, "Can't wait to see you, you'll love the place," and then one that made my stomach tighten. "Don't tell anyone where you're going. Let's keep it just between us." My grip on the steering wheel tightened. Part of me wanted to turn back, but I didn't, because sometimes the scariest mistakes we make are the ones we convince ourselves are harmless. And this one was about to become the worst mistake of my life. The motel sat like a scar on the side of the highway. Half the neon sign was burned out, so instead of reading Sunset Lodge, it just glowed, set low, in flickering red. The parking lot was cracked, weeds pushing through the pavement, and only a single truck sat near the far corner. Melissa had texted me which room she was in. Room 6, ground floor, near the back. As I parked, I couldn't shake this heavy feeling in my chest. The building wasn't abandoned exactly, but it felt forgotten. A row of doors, some boarded shut, paint peeling from the walls. One of the upstairs windows had duct tape holding the glass together. I stepped out of my car and instantly noticed the air smelled damp, almost metallic. There was no front office light, no lobby open, just silence and the faint buzzing of that dying neon. My phone buzzed. It was Melissa again. "You here?" I typed back. "Yeah, parking now." Almost instantly, another message came. "Good. Don't be nervous. Just come straight to the door." Her tone seemed different than in our chats. Shorter, sharper. I told myself I was just overthinking it. I walked across the lot, gravel crunching under my shoes, eyes scanning the shadows. Every step closer to room 6 made my stomach twist tighter. Finally, I stood in front of the door. The number 6 was crooked, barely hanging from a rusty nail. The curtain inside was drawn shut. A soft yellow glow laked out around the edges. I raised my hand to knock, but before I could, the door creaked open an inch, just enough for me to see one pale green eye staring out at me. Melissa's voice whispered, almost too quiet to hear, "Come in," quickly and for a second. I wasn't sure if I wanted to. The door opened wider, and Melissa stepped aside, motioning for me to come in. I forced a smile, trying to mask the unease crawling up my spine. The room was dim, lit by a single lamp on the nightstand. The walls were stained from years of cigarette smoke, and the carpet looked damp in spots. There was a small table against the far wall, 2 chairs, and on the bed, an old floral comforter that looked like it hadn't been washed in months. Melissa looked the same as her pictures, almost. Her hair was a little messier, her smile tighter, and her eyes, those dark eyes that had seemed so warm on my phone, looked sharper in person, like she was studying me. She shut the door behind me and locked it. That metallic click made my chest tighten. "You made it," she said softly, almost like it was a secret. Her voice was calm, but something about it didn't feel right. I tried to ease the tension with a joke. "Yeah, though I wasn't sure my GPS was even taking me to the right place. This motel, it's kinda, retro." Her lips curved into a strange half-smile. "Retro, that's one word for it." She gestured toward the table. "Sit, I brought something for us." On the table was a bottle of wine, already uncorked, and 2 mismatched glasses. Next to them, a plate of meat and cheese that looked off. The slices were thick, uneven, almost like they hadn't come from a store. I hesitated, but Melissa pulled out the chair for me, waiting until I sat. As I lowered myself into the seat, my eyes wandered the room again. That's when I noticed something. There were no personal belongings, no purse, no phone charger, no makeup bag. Nothing to suggest she actually lived there. Just the wine, the food, and her. Melissa poured the wine slowly, her eyes never leaving mine. And in that moment, a thought I didn't want to have slammed into me. What if this wasn't a date? What if I had just walked into a trap? Melissa slid one of the glasses toward me. The red liquid caught the dim light of the lamp, deep and dark, almost too thick. "Go on," she said softly. "Take a sip." I picked up the glass but didn't drink right away. Instead, I asked the most natural question I could think of. "So, you live here?" Her lips curved again, that same tight half-smile. "For now." Something about the way she said it sent a ripple of unease down my back. Not yes, not no, just for now. She finally sat across from me, folding her hands neatly on the table. For a moment, she just watched me, as if waiting to see what I would do. I set the glass down. "Sorry, I'm just not much of a wine guy." I forced a small laugh. Her eyes narrowed slightly, like she saw through the excuse. But then she leaned in closer, her voice dropping lower. "You know, you remind me of someone." That made me pause. "Oh yeah? Who?" Her smile widened, showing a glimpse of teeth. "My last date." She said it so casually, like it was a harmless joke, but her tone was flat. Her eyes didn't blink. The air between us felt heavy, and I could hear the faint hum of the neon outside seeping through the cracked window. I swallowed hard and asked, "So, where is he now?" Melissa tilted her head slowly, studying me like a predator studies prey. Then after a long silence, she whispered, "Gone." That one word didn't sound like heartbreak. It didn't sound like a breakup. It sounded final. My hand twitched toward my phone in my pocket, not to text anyone, not to call for help, just to make sure it was still there, still an option, because sitting across from her in that stale motel room, I realized something with cold certainty. Melissa wasn't lonely. She wasn't looking for love. She was looking for something else. Melissa stood up from the table, moving with this slow, deliberate grace. She picked up her glass and took a long sip, her eyes never leaving mine. Then she said, almost casually, "I'll be right back." "Don't go anywhere." She disappeared into the bathroom, shutting the door behind her. The click of the lock echoed louder than it should have. The moment she was out of sight, my chest tightened. I knew I shouldn't snoop, but every instinct I had was screaming that something wasn't right. My eyes darted around the room. Still no purse, still no bag, still no sign of anyone actually staying here. Then I noticed it, the closet door slightly ajar, just wide enough for me to see that something dark was hanging inside. I hesitated, heart pounding, then stood and crept toward it. The carpet squished faintly under my shoes, damp and sticky. I pulled the door open an inch more. Hanging inside were clothes, but not women's clothes. Men's. A wrinkled button-up shirt, jeans, a leather jacket, all too big to belong to Melissa, and below them, shoved carelessly into the corner, was a pair of sneakers. The soles were still caked with dried mud, like they had been worn recently. My throat went dry. Melissa had said nothing about roommates, nothing about a boyfriend, and yet here was proof that another man had been in this room. I crouched down, forcing myself to look closer at the shoes. That's when I saw it, a dark brown smear across the laces. At first I told myself it was dirt, but the color, the texture, it looked too much like dried blood. Before I could process it, I heard the bathroom door unlatch. Melissa's voice floated out, calm and sweet. "Miss me." I snapped the closet door shut and rushed back to the chair, gripping the armrest to hide the tremble in my hands. When she stepped back into the room, her smile was wider than before, but her eyes told me she knew exactly what I'd been doing. Melissa glided back to her seat, eyes locked on mine the entire time. She didn't sit right away. Instead, she leaned against the table, head tilted just slightly, that smile plastered on her face. "You looked around while I was gone, didn't you?" Her voice was soft, but the words carried a weight that made my chest tighten. I forced out a nervous laugh. "No, I was just, stretching my legs." Her smile didn't fade. If anything, it grew sharper, like she was enjoying watching me squirm. Finally, she sat down across from me, folding her hands neatly. Then she asked, "Do you ever think about how easy it is to disappear?" The question hit me like ice water. I blinked, unsure if I'd heard her right. "Disappear?" I repeated. She nodded slowly, eyes fixed on mine. "Yeah, one day you're at work, talking to your friends, living your life, and the next day, poof, gone. Nobody even knows where to start looking." The way she said it wasn't hypothetical. It sounded like a fact, a memory. My throat was dry, but I forced myself to respond. "I mean, I guess it happens. People go missing." Melissa leaned in closer, her face inches from mine now. Her voice dropped lower. "It's easier than you think. All it takes is the right place, the right timing, and someone who knows how to make it happen." For the first time all night, I couldn't hold her stare. I glanced at the window, at the door, anywhere but her eyes. She noticed. I could feel her smile widen again. "Relax," she whispered. "You're safe with me." But the way she said it didn't make me feel safe. It made me feel trapped. I gripped my phone in my pocket, thumb hovering over the screen. But before I could pull it out, Melissa reached across the table and gently placed her hand over mine. Her skin was cold, her grip firm, and then she whispered the words that made my blood run cold. "You remind me so much of the last one." Her hand lingered on mine just a second too long, cold, steady, unshakable. Then she leaned back, fingers drumming lightly against the table. "The last one," she repeated, almost like she was savoring the memory. I tried to play dumb. "You mean your last date?" Melissa tilted her head, her eyes catching the dim light. "No," she said, "not a date. Something different." The air in the room seemed heavier now, as though the silence itself was pressing down on me. Every hum of the neon outside felt louder, every creak of the building more pronounced. She smiled faintly, staring past me, almost lost in thought. "He sat right where you're sitting." He looked nervous, too. I told him the same thing I told you, that he reminded me of someone. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my breathing. I wanted to ask what happened to him, but part of me already knew. Melissa leaned forward again, her tone shifting into something darker. "When I came back from the bathroom that night, he wasn't in the chair anymore. He thought he could hide, thought he could run." Her lips curled into a slow grin. "And now," she paused, letting the silence drag. "Now he's still here." The words sent a chill crawling across my skin. My mind flashed back to the men's clothes in the closet, the sneakers with the dried brown stains, still here. Melissa watched my reaction carefully, like she was feeding off the fear she saw flickering across my face. Then she whispered, almost like a secret, just for me, "Do you want to meet him?" My mouth went dry at her words. "Meet him." I forced out a laugh, but it came out thin, shaky. "That's a weird joke." Melissa didn't laugh. She stood up instead, slow and deliberate, then walked past me toward the closet. Her bare feet made no sound on the damp carpet. She gripped the door and glanced back at me with a smirk. "You've already seen his clothes, haven't you?" My stomach dropped. She yanked the door open wider. Inside, the hanging shirt swayed slightly, though there was no draft in the room. Melissa crouched down, dragging something out from the shadows. For a split second, I prayed it would just be a bag, or maybe a suitcase. It wasn't. She slid out a large black duffel, the zipper strained against whatever was inside, its shape uneven, bulging in ways that made my skin crawl. Melissa crouched beside it, her voice barely above a whisper. He didn't like the wine either. The zipper teeth clinked as her fingers traced along the bag. I could see a faint dark stain spread across the fabric, dried, flaking, and the smell. Now that the bag was closer, there was no mistaking it. That sickly sweet, metallic stench. Blood. I felt my knees whacken, my instincts screaming at me to bolt for the door. But Melissa's eyes locked on me again, and she smiled as if daring me to move. "Go ahead," she said softly. "Ask me where the rest of him is." The air in the room felt poisoned now, heavy with that metallic stench leaking from the duffel bag. My pulse hammered in my ears, so loud I was terrified she could hear it, too. Melissa crouched beside the bag, stroking the stained fabric with a tenderness that made me want to retch. "You don't have to be afraid," she whispered, eyes glinting. He was afraid, too, until he couldn't be anymore. That was it. My body moved before my brain could second guess. I pushed back from the chair so hard it toppled over, the sound cracking through the room like a gunshot. I bolted toward the door, every instinct in me screaming for freedom, my hand wrapped around the doorknob, cold, slick with sweat, and twisted. But before I could pull it open, something slammed into me from behind. Melissa. She was faster than I ever could have imagined. Her shoulder drove into my back, pinning me against the wood with a force that knocked the air out of me. Her voice was right at my ear, low and steady. "Leaving already?" I shoved back, struggling, desperate, but she didn't budge. For someone so slight, her strength felt unnatural. The pressure against my spine grew, and I could feel the vibration of her laughter, soft and unnerving. With every ounce of strength I had, I threw my elbow back, catching her in the ribs. She gasped, loosening just enough for me to spin around. Her expression wasn't pained, it was excited. Her lips curled into that same smile, but now her teeth were bared, sharp in the dim light. I lunged for the table, grabbing the nearest thing I could, a half-empty wine bottle. My hand trembled as I held it between us like a weapon. Melissa tilted her head, unfazed, eyes locked on mine. "That's better," she whispered. "I like it when they fight." The room felt smaller now, the walls closing in. The duffel bag sat behind her, silent proof of what happened to the last man who sat where I was. And in that moment, staring into her unblinking eyes, I realized something terrifying. If I didn't get out now, I wasn't going to leave this motel room at all. Melissa didn't flinch at the bottle in my hand. If anything, she looked thrilled, her grin stretching too wide, like the whole situation was a game she had been waiting to play. "You're not like him," she whispered, circling slowly, her eyes never leaving mine. He begged. You're different. You want to fight." I gripped the bottle tighter, my palms slick with sweat. My arms trembled, not from the weight, but from the surge of panic coursing through me. Every step she took narrowed the space, closing me in between the table and the wall. I had one chance. If I hesitated, it was over. She lunged first. Her hands shot out with terrifying speed, clawing for my wrist. Instinct took over. I swung the bottle. Glass connected with her shoulder, shattering into a spray of shards and red liquid. She staggered back, but she didn't scream. She laughed. Dark wine dripped down her arm, mingling with tiny cuts from the glass. She looked at it, fascinated, before raising her gaze to me again. Her smile hadn't faltered. That laugh, low, guttural, unnatural, rattled inside me. I didn't wait. I bolted for the door again, yanking it open this time. The hallway outside was dim, buzzing with that same flickering neon light. I could smell mildew and dust, but it was freedom. I took one step out, then felt her hand clamp around my ankle. She had dropped to the floor, eyes burning with wild excitement, her nails digging into my skin through the fabric of my jeans. The strength in that grip was unreal. I kicked hard, again and again, until she let go with a sharp hiss. I stumbled into the hall, heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst. Behind me, Melissa crawled halfway into the doorway, her hair hanging wild around her face, her teeth bared. "You can run," she said softly, almost sweetly, "but you'll never leave me." And as I sprinted down that endless hallway, the echo of her laugh followed me, bouncing off the walls, closer than it should have been, closer, as if she was still right behind me. My footsteps thundered down the hallway, each one echoing too loud, too sharp, as if the motel itself wanted to announce my escape. The walls were stained with age, wallpaper peeling in long strips, doors lining either side. Every one of them looked the same. Dull brass numbers, chipped paint, silence pressing from behind. But something was wrong. The hallway wasn't ending. I ran past one door, then another, but the numbers weren't changing. 108, 108, 108, over and over again, stamped onto every door I passed. My chest burned, my throat raw from breathing too hard, but I didn't stop. I pushed harder, desperate to reach the lobby, the exit, anything that didn't feel like this looping nightmare. Then faint at first, I heard it, her footsteps, not rushed, not panicked, slow, measured, as if she knew I had nowhere else to go. Her laugh followed, bouncing off the walls, crawling under my skin. You see it now, don't you? You can't leave. You're already inside. I skidded to a stop, staring at the endless line of identical doors. My head spun. Every instinct screamed at me to pick one, anyone, and hide. So I did. I grabbed the knob of the nearest door and shoved it open. The hinges groaned, and I stumbled inside, slamming it shut behind me. My breath came in ragged gasps as I pressed my back to the door, praying she hadn't seen which one I chose. The room was dark, no lamp, no hum of neon, just pitch black. But then a smell hit me. Rot, sweet, clinging, suffocating rot. And slowly, as my eyes adjusted, I saw it. In the corner, slumped against the wall, was a figure, motionless, skin gray, slack, eyes glassy and open, staring at nothing. The missing man, the last one. I froze, bile rising in my throat. And then from the hallway, her voice drifted closer, sing-song, playful. Found yourself a friend? I backed away from the figure, my heel catching on the stained carpet. My eyes refused to leave his. They were milky, lifeless, or at least I prayed they were. His jaw hung slack, teeth yellowed, lips stretched into something that looked like a half-smile frozen in time. I whispered to myself, it's just a body, just a body. But the words tasted like lies, because then the fingers twitched, so faint, so slow. I almost convinced myself I imagined it, but then came the sound, like wet fabric tearing, as his head tilted toward me. Vertebrae cracked in sharp bursts, as if the movement hadn't happened in years. His lips parted, a rasp leaked out, no words, just a dragging breath that seemed to scrape the air. I staggered backward until my spine slammed against the wall. My palms were slick, my throat closing with panic. From the hallway she called again, that sweet, mocking tone. Don't be rude, he only wants to meet you. The man's arms jerked forward, elbows bending unnaturally. His body didn't rise like someone standing. It unfolded, like a puppet being yanked upright by invisible strings. The joints cracked, shoulders popping, until he towered over me. I darted for the door, but the knob wouldn't turn. I twisted and yanked, the metal cutting into my skin, but it wouldn't move. It felt welded shut. Behind me, the figure lurched closer. Each step made the floorboards groan as if the motel itself hated his weight. The smell of rot grew thicker, forcing me to gag. I pressed my forehead to the door, whispering prayers I hadn't spoken since childhood. Then suddenly, everything went silent. No footsteps, no rasping breath. I turned my head slowly, heart hammering. The figure was inches from my face. His dead eyes locked onto mine. And then he smiled wider, too wide, skin tearing at the corners of his mouth. And in a voice that wasn't his, in a voice that was hers, he whispered, "You'll never leave." The words froze me where I stood. His lips had moved, but the voice was hers, Melissa's, that playful, taunting lilt echoing through a dead man's throat. I slammed my fist against the door, screaming for help, for anyone, but the sound was swallowed by the motel's walls, not muffled, swallowed, like the building itself didn't want me heard. The figure's head twitched, snapping from side to side, bones clicking like loose hinges. He leaned closer, his breath reeking of soil and decay, and placed one icy hand against the door right next to my face. The skin of his palm was cracked, like dry dried leather. I ducked and shoved past him, sprinting for the bathroom. The door was still off its hinges, but I pressed myself against the cracked sink, searching desperately for anything I could use as a weapon. My eyes landed on the broken shard of the mirror. I grabbed it, slicing my hand in the process. But I didn't care. The figure lurched into the bathroom, filling the doorway with his bulk. His shoulders scraped the wood as though his body had swollen beyond human proportions. I raised the shard, my hand trembling. "Stay back." He didn't flinch. Instead, the lights flickered, plunging us into darkness for a split second. And when they came back, Melissa was standing behind him in the mirror's reflection. Only in the reflection. She leaned in close to his ear, lips moving but no sound came out. The figure's head jerked toward the ceiling. His chest heaved as if something inside him was clawing to escape. The bathroom walls groaned, tiles cracked under invisible pressure. And then the smell hit. Mold, damp wood, and something far worse. It wasn't just rot anymore. It was chemical, acidic. The motel itself was changing. I bolted past him again, heart thundering. And this time I didn't stop at the door. I went straight for the window. But when I pulled the curtain aside, my scream stuck in my throat. Outside, there was no parking lot, no neon sign, no road, just endless, shifting woods stretching into blackness. My breath fogged the glass as I stared out at the impossible view. The parking lot, the rows of other rooms, even the buzzing neon vacancy sign, they were gone, replaced by a wall of trees that seemed to stretch on forever. But these weren't normal woods. The branches bent at angles that hurt my eyes. Some twisted into loops, some pressed against each other like they were writhing. The bark wasn't bark at all. It pulsed, shifting like skin. Behind me, the figure shuffled closer, his body brushing against the walls, as if the room itself was shrinking to contain him. I raised the glass shard higher, my arm shaking, but deep down I knew it wouldn't matter. From the reflection in the window, I saw her again, Melissa, smiling that same crooked smile. Only this time she wasn't in the room. She was outside, standing in those distorted woods, staring up at me. She mouthed the words, slowly, deliberately. "Come out." The lights in the room flickered again, buzzing like dying insects. The smell of mold was unbearable now, coating the back of my throat. The figure raised one arm, stiff and jerky, and pressed his hand flat against the window beside my face. His fingers left streaks of something dark, almost tar-like, smeared across the glass. I backed away, clutching the shard, until I reached the bed. The sheets were damp, heavy. I tugged them off instinctively, and a swarm of black beetles scattered out, vanishing into the cracks of the floor. My scream broke into a sob. This place wasn't just a room. It wasn't a motel anymore. It was alive. The figure turned toward me fully now, his body casting the room into shadow. The walls groaned, the ceiling bowed as if about to collapse, and from somewhere deep inside the structure, I heard it knocking, slow, deliberate knocking, like fists pounding to be let out. Melissa's voice filled the air, echoing from everywhere at once. "You checked in, didn't you? That means you belong here, and nobody ever leaves." The pounding in the walls grew louder, echoing through the floorboards and ceiling. Each thud rattled my bones, each vibration crawling beneath my skin. I pressed myself against the farthest corner of the room, clutching the shard of glass so tight it dug into my palm. The figure loomed closer, his body moving with that unnatural puppet-like stiffness. His head jerked from side to side, as though something was pulling invisible strings. I thought he was about to strike, but instead he stopped, inches from my face. His mouth opened wide, too wide. The skin split at the corners, bloodless like old rubber tearing. From the black pit of his throat, a familiar voice poured out. Melissa's voice. "You don't need to fight anymore." I shook my head, tears blurring my vision. discretion. Please, let me go. She laughed, soft, almost kind. But you came to us. You knocked first. You wanted company, didn't you? The walls creaked as if leaning closer to hear. The knocking inside them became pounding. Frantic now, dozens of fists begging to break free. I wanted to cover my ears, but the sound wasn't just in the room, it was inside my head. Melissa appeared again in the window's reflection, closer than before. Her red hair spilled over her shoulders, her eyes bright and alive with something feral. She pressed her hand against the glass, and when she did, my breath caught because I felt it. Warm, soft, fingers curling around mine. Through the glass, I dropped the shard. It shattered at my feet. The figure lunged down, his milky eyes inches from mine. His lips moved, but it was Melissa who whispered through them, "You're ours now." The lights went out, silence, and when they flickered back, just for a heartbeat, I wasn't in the room anymore. I was standing outside, in the woods that weren't woods. The motel behind me loomed, its windows glowing faintly, silhouettes pressing against the glass from the inside, dozens of them, hundreds, all faces locked in silent screams. I tried to move, to scream, but my body wouldn't obey. My reflection in the glass door stared back at me, only it wasn't me anymore. It was smiling,